Buenas tardes a todos. Hoy presentamos a Kira Rudik, que es miembro del Parlamento ucraniano, de la Verkhovna Rada, y la líder del partido Golos y también vicepresidenta de ALDE. Good afternoon, Kira. Добрый день. As I told to the Spanish spectators that you are a member of the Ukrainian Parliament, the Verkhovna Rada, and also you are the leader of the party Golos, and also vice president of the Liberals, the ALDE party. Sorry.
Hello.
Thanks to join us today in this interview for Diario de España, and I want to start the interview with the first question. You will have explained it for sure multiple times, but can you tell us how was the first day of the war, the day when the war started? How did you experience it?
The bombarding of Kiev started at 5 a.m. on February 24th. We were very late in Verkhovna Rada the day before. So at that moment, I woke up and we realized what is happening, that the war started, and we started calling each other from the parliamentary party leaders, figuring out of what we are going to do. According to Ukrainian constitution, the obligation of the parliament at the times like this, at the times when the war starts, is to gather inside the chambers and to vote for the martial law to begin, for the mobilization of the people, and making sure that we move all the powers into our military, give them as much powers and abilities as possible. However, people were in distress and we did not know if we would be able to get people in. So we started calling each other, figuring out how many people can get into the chambers. Our security were telling us that we cannot absolutely go in because it was too dangerous. So we gathered people outside Rada for some time, and at the agreed moment with our security, we were allowed into the chambers for just 10 minutes. And for the 10 minutes that we were desperately clicking our buttons, calling for the whole world to help us stand against the aggressor, to show to Ukrainian people that we are not running, that we are here. We were holding hands and singing national anthem. Of 420 Ukrainian members of parliament, there was almost 400 who came that day. No matter the distress, no matter the danger, no matter the inability to physically get through the Kiev that was in the evacuation. So it was one of the most emotional moments in my life. After that, we returned to our homes and we were talking to our teams on how we are going to act. The main decision was that the situation was changing very quickly, but we decided that we will not run. And every single day we will reevaluate where we would be needed the most and how we would be the most effective in fighting with our country for the independence and for the values that we believe at. And up till this day, this is how we work. Every single day, one step at a time.
So basically, I want to say that I admire the bravery of you all Ukrainians. You showed an example to the world of how to behave against a brutal invasion as you had 1 year ago, and you are still ongoing. So my next question is related to that. Recently, we passed the first anniversary of the invasion. How do you think that Ukraine as a country and the government are working right now?
There was also one important thing that happened on that first day of the full-scale invasion. Because when we were singing the national anthem in the dark chambers of the parliament, we made a vow between the parliamentary party leaders that for as long as it is needed, and no matter how painful it would be, we will stay united and work as one, not politicians, but Team Ukraine. And up to this point, I can tell you one thing. It is indeed very painful. Politicians are not set to be people who are working together very well and can survive without the public debates on critical points. However, we managed to keep the debates behind the scenes, and usually, and in most of the cases, work as one. No matter when we are talking to Ukrainian people or we are talking to our international partners. Since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, Ukrainian parliament has been working and has gathered in the chambers for almost every other week. And this is what we continue doing right now, because this is one of the basics of the democracy, that our democratic organs are functioning and that we are supporting the thing that we are fighting for. The democracy, our ability to define our own future, our ability to figure out by ourselves how we are going to act. And so this is what we are doing. In terms of the directions, there are 4 key directions for us. The first one is for the parliament to be a service to our military. Since the day one, there has not been a thing that they asked us and we did not do. So it's our super key goal. Make sure that our soldiers, brave men and women, have everything that we can get them. Sometimes those are the requests to work with some of the countries on getting specific amount of weapons. Sometimes it's additional bills to restructure how the military works, but it has always been done. Second direction is working with our international partners and allowing all the logistics. So for Ukrainian refugees to get out and for the international help to get in to work well. Third direction is an ability of our society to fight Russia. So it's a list of bills against the collaboration, against Russian influence, against Russians' attempt to overthrow our democracy. And the fourth direction is keeping our economy alive. I would not say that it is the last, but it is something that we need to do. Like as of right now, more than 50% of our energy infrastructure have been destroyed. And this is just one of the signs of how hard it is for everybody here in Ukraine just to go on day to day. And this is why we are trying to make it easier on our people. However, we understand that this is the burden that we all carry, not equally, but we all carry a part of it.
Thank you very much for your answer. The third question is regarding the European Union. Why must Ukraine join the European Union? And also, do you think that this is a real possibility in the short or the midterm?
So a matter of European Union is an incredibly sensitive and emotional matter here for Ukrainians. First of all, you see European Union and NATO flags behind me. It's not because this is something that I made up. Desire to join European Union and NATO is written in Ukrainian constitution, that is will of our people. And probably the first good news over the last year were when we got the candidacy to European Union, which was a huge boost of morale and support. I can tell you here on the ground, most of the people think that we are kind of technically already in European Union, but the paperwork is just in the mail. My friends who were going to the front as volunteers, they tied 2 flags to their backpacks, Ukrainian flag and EU flag. And my biggest fear when we were fighting to get this candidacy was that we will not get it. And what would I tell people who are fighting right now, that they fought under the wrong flag? The matter that we have chosen European path against being with Russia was actually the reason why Putin started a war that started in 2014 when we made this decision. So it is not something that comes out of nowhere. It's a result of a long strategy for us. In terms of our path to European Union, I can brag to you and use this opportunity that over the last year, Ukrainian Parliament have completed all the 7 requirements from the European Council on terms to support our candidate status. Right now, we have this amazing window of opportunity when we have a political will, when we have a society that supports and pushes us to do everything possible and impossible to complete the list of the requirements that we will become members of European Union. And we, of course, want for it to happen fast. there is an important reason why it should happen sooner rather than later. We understand that for the rebuild of my country, we will need and we will receive a huge amount of support, financial support. And I want it to be used already using the transparent mechanism of the European Union and not be like distributed somewhere without the real value to Ukrainian people. This is the goal. And this is why, as a leader of a liberal party, and this is why as a Ukrainian politician, and most of all, as a Ukrainian patriot, I'm pushing as hard as it is possible for us to get as close to European Union as possible, and then to get the status like as already a bureaucratic norm. One of my personal matters is that over the last year, I have visited 34 countries to lobby for support of Ukraine. And the flights are not going to Kiev right now. So you have to drive to Warsaw and do it from there. So I have been to Poland many times. And every time I'm looking around on the progress that Poland, our neighbor, have made being a member of European Union, I look at it with bittersweet. I say, we could have had it as well. I want this for my country. I want what you have. And I'm absolutely sure that we are able to build it with the right procedures, the right rules, and with the right support.
Thank you very much, Kira. I can agree with you because I was visiting Kiev 3 years ago in 2020, and I have never seen so much amount of European and NATO flags in every single European city than in Kiev. So I can feel that the support of the population for the European Union is not made up after the war. It's something that comes from long before. So, and it's important that we Europeans are aware of that's the will of the Ukrainian people. Next question. We know that a few days ago, you posted on your Twitter account that Putin needed psychological therapy. Why do you think so?
There are so many things that happened that in Ukraine that we can explain by being a tyrant and being a war criminal. But there are some that cannot be explained. For example, how do you compare the attempts of Putin to denazify and demilitarize Ukraine with the war crimes that were committed in Bucha, in Irpin? How do you compare the statements of Putin saying that Ukrainians are waiting for him and for his forces with the flags and flowers, and the destructions that have made to those alleged people in different areas? How can you explain someone sending missiles into the nuclear station? This is what Russians are doing to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear station right now. And it has been a threat and one step away from a really nuclear disaster for a long time right now. Nobody who have experienced Chernobyl, and we know how it feels, that it would affect generations, and it would basically only depend on the wind at that moment of the disaster on who will be affected. And most likely Russia would be affected, but they would still send missiles near the station and onto the station, threatening the whole world with the nuclear incident. And I do not think that this is something that can be explained with the logic. I do not think this is something that can be explained with the stupidity. It is something that that just calls for a real help. After the order for an arrest was issued for Putin, we do hope this treatment will happen at the same time as the trial.
Thank you very much for your answer. Moving into the next question, into the international community and the help to Ukraine. What has the international community done right and perhaps wrong when supporting to Ukraine during this year?
I think nobody have expected the way that the international community will come together. I do not think that Putin expected it. And most of all, I don't think all of us expected it. And when all of us, I say all of us Europeans. there was something, and I think the story of Ukraine and the story of President Zelensky and story of international community is that sometimes you're capable of much more that the world expects from you, but also than you expect from yourself. And this is what happened. People were coming together. People were giving Ukraine the unprecedented support in terms of sanctions, in terms of weapons, in terms of taking care of our refugees, in terms of sending us financial support, humanitarian support, fighting on our side. I think the main and the most important lesson of it is that impossible is nothing. Like, you remember a year and 2 months ago, nobody believed that we will be standing for more than a couple of weeks. But then nobody believed that we will get the heavy weapons. Nobody believed that we will get the candidacy to European Union. Then nobody believed that we will get onto counteroffense and get the Kharkiv region and then Kherson back. Then we are getting into the story of nobody believing that we will get Patriot missiles. And for sure, you remember how lots of skeptics did not believe into the tanks coalition. And right now we are at the point when nobody believes in the fighter jets coalition. However, there are huge strikes in this matter. The main thing that I wish happened differently is the time. There is a huge difference between how the time goes here in Kiev or at the front and the way that how it goes in peaceful cities of Europe or other democratic countries. Recently, Charles Michel visited Ukrainian parliament and was giving a speech. And he said that it was unprecedented for European Commission to gather and just in 3 days to make a decision on how to support Ukraine. And my colleague turned his head onto me and said, I remember those 3 days. My family and I, we were sitting at the basement for 3 days straight because our village was bombarded. And this is a huge difference. And this is why we keep calling on making the decisions that are stronger, the decisions that are more timely, decisions that allow us to fight better, to face our enemy not empty-handed. Because the main and the critical point here is give us the weapons. I wish that all the weapons that we receive right now were given to us a year ago. It would change the flow of the war, and it would put us into different place right now. However, we cannot change the past, but we can learn from it for the future to make the decisions faster, political decisions, logistical decisions, bureaucratic decisions, and make sure that we will get what we need in time.
Thank you very much for your answer, Kira. I also remember in February 2020 when all the international commentators, they were not asking if Kiev will fall. They were asking when Kiev will fall. 1 year later, you are still standing. As you said, you recovered Kharkiv region, you recovered Kherson. I'm sure you are going to recover Crimea. But how do you see the situation in 1 year? Is there a chance for a negotiated peace? Or, as I think personally, do you think that Russia should be defeated in the battlefield? What are your thoughts on that?
When we are talking about the peace, we need to figure out how do we keep the peace, how this peace is maintained. There was a peace for the last 9 years since 2014. And we know that since the time we know that you cannot make any agreements with Russia. But the main question is who or what right now will make sure that Putin keeps his part of the deal. As of right now, we do not see anybody willing to take a vouch for Putin, so he will take his part of the bargain. And this is why all the negotiations are impossible. On a personal matter, I grew up in a western part of Ukraine, in a small town. I was born when Soviet Union collapsed. And during my lifetime, I have gone through all the struggles that my country has gone with the poverty and then revolutions and then the war that started in 2014, and now the war. And my biggest goal in the politics was that we will be able to have a generation of children that would be normal, that would not know and experience everything that I have experienced. And we have, right now we are robbed of it. We have children that have seen dead bodies. We have children that know how to study in the bomb shelter, how to act during an air raid siren, how to ask their parents, "Mommy, are we refugees now?" and many others. And there is one thing that we owe to these children, is that they would not have to fight the same war over and over in 10 years, in 15 years. It ends on us, on our generation. So how do we make it? And yes, right now what we see, that Russia understands only one language. It's a language of force, language of power. And we are going to use this language to kick them out of our territories and restore our sovereignty. And then there would be again a question of how do we make sure that they would not attack again? And before the world has a good solution, an answer to that, before we figure out how the new security order looks like, there are no negotiations, no discussions about peace.
Thank you very much. I also agree that if we offer incentives to a tyrant, it will be like the spark for a new invasion in a few years, as we saw from 2014 in 2022. The international community gave Crimea, we looked to the other side, and then the full-scale invasion came. So I think it's necessary that everybody knows the argument you just expressed from Kiev in order to understand why, in this case, it's better to not negotiate with somebody which cannot be trusted and cannot fulfill even the basic international law.
There is another point here, is that it is not only Russia. The whole world is watching on how the Western democracies react. And we are talking about China. We are talking about Asian and African autocracies that are just watching to how to raise their head if they will see the impunity. This is what Russia has seen for the last 9 years, and this is not something that we can allow them, and we can allow the tyrannies to happen in the 21st century, breaking all the international laws and getting away from it. No, we are saying no.
I totally agree with you. If we are weak with the tyrants, tyrants will use the force in order to submit, to dominate all the world, and we cannot allow that as part of the Western world, as defenders of democracy. And the last question, Kira, it's about the future, about the building of Ukraine. In which way do you think that Ukraine can be rebuilt?
Well, first of all, we need to be very clear on where we would get the resources for the rebuild. My country is halfway destroyed right now, with more than 50% of our energy infrastructure specifically destroyed by Putin, with almost 20% of our territories being a minefield that will take just dozens of years to fix, with cities destroyed to the ground, and people tortured and killed. We need to use Russian money for it, but how do we get it from them? There is a solution. As of right now, $500 billion of Russian money are being frozen and stored in the Western banks. It's a very autocratic thing to do, to despise the democracy, but still save their money there because they like the rule of law and all the immunity points that being a democratic country gives you. So right now the money are frozen according to the sanctions, but we need to work together, make sure that they are being unfrozen and used for the sake of Ukraine. A year ago, when we had this idea, so many people laughed at us and said that it is impossible. As of right now, I can tell you that Canada have already passed the necessary legislation and have already seized $26 million of oligarch Abramovich. Right now, we are working with our fellow parliamentarians in Canada to figure out the proper way of sending the money to Ukraine. The United States have passed the amendment to the law to use the oligarch money and $5 million of oligarch Malafeev are being seized for the sake of Ukraine. If the United Kingdom is working on the economy crimes bill, and we hope that soon it will be voted in the chambers. European Union is doing the consultations, but we are working on the national parliaments level and on EU parliament level to figure out the fastest and the most logic way on seizing the assets and using them for our sake. We think that this is the logic and fair way of making Putin pay for the destructions that he caused, and not putting this burden on the people who actually support them, support us from their hearts. And this needs to happen earlier than later, because we need the rebuild right now. I know, like today, it's March 29th, it's snowing in Kiev. We have like a 2 inch of snow. And it's a miracle how we survived through the winter with diesel generators and putting fires in the streets to make sure that we just like physically survive. We do not know how we are going to survive next winter. And we need to prepare, and we need the rebuild right now, not in 5 years, not in 10 years. And this is why I'm very optimistic that we will be able to fund the rebuild project with the Russian money.
Thank you very much, Kira. That was the last question. I don't know if you want to add something else to wrap up, or...
Yes, I would like to add. You know, my mom says that there is one thing you cannot ever do too much, is to say thank you to the people who gave you a hand at the hardest time. So I want to use this time and say to all the Spanish people who are supporting us, thank you from my heart, from Ukrainian people to you. This is something that is being done, it's generational, because we will remember it and we will never forget. Thank you so much for opening your homes for our refugees. We hope that one day they will return back home, and we are doing everything that we can. Thank you for pushing your government to send us the weapons that we need and the supplies that will allow us to fight. Thank you for sending the financial support to humanitarian funds and to other funds. We will remember it. Thank you.
Thank you very much to you, Kira. Thank you to all the Ukrainian population, not only for surviving, because you are defending the democracy, you are defending our freedom, you are defending the flags you have behind you, the European flag, of course, and the values that it represents. And I would like to also appreciate this emotional interview. It was very interesting in order that we, the Spanish population, we can understand what's going on in Kiev right now, why it's important that we continue helping you, why it's important to continue sending weapons, to sending money, and why it's important that Ukraine joins the European Union as soon as possible. So thank you very much, and I don't want to end this interview with saying Slava Ukraini.
Heroям слава. Thank you so much.
That's